my wife just had a baby, and I have been almost completely sequestered away from the world for 4 months. There's been a few times when I've gone out. I've had a few interactions with other people, but just the other day, I had to go to Home Depot. So I go in there and I put on a mask, and the very thing that I thought was going to happen really came true for me as I'm walking around there, which is I cannot tell the emotional state of anyone I am walking around with. So as you approach somebody, you have no way of telling, is the reason that they're walking so close to me because they're aggressive? Is it because they're lost in their own thoughts? You have nothing other than their eyes. And I found myself being so distracted and my brain have to work so hard to figure out what was going on with the people around me that it made me like a not very pleasant person to walk around with. And like, you've known me for years. Like, I'm the type of person that walks around with a big goofy smile on my face and talks to total strangers. So the fact that I can't do this, like, I think there's a much, much bigger cost with removing 2/3 of people's faces than just the very act of protecting people from whatever is behind the mask.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've walked around various places with you plenty of times in the past, and I think probably what you're talking about is, I think that typically I'm not tuned in as much to people's emotions, and I have a less detailed mental model of their inner states than I do of my own, right? So I feel like I'm maybe in this condition most of the time, right? Like when I'm walking around, and maybe that makes some sense, right? Because I feel like I'm generally more, I don't know. I don't want to use the word paranoid because I don't want you to think I'm walking around like a crazy person here, but I know what you mean, right? Like you're just kind of like leery of having encounters with other people, and if they're in your personal space, you're not just like, oh, hey, friend, what's wrong? You're kind of like, what's happening here? There's some kind of a threat,
Yeah, a guy stopped to shake my hand, and like I was like, okay, are we doing go time here? Like, why is this guy turning and making his like body facing me? And then it turns out it's my good friend Bob, and he's got a big smile on his face, and he wants to shake hands. But so to me, I left Home Depot being like, I don't know when I'll go out and do that again. And it's not because I'm afraid of the germs. It's because now the very fabric that made me love being an extrovert, love being in encountering other people, the randomness that came with being in a place like that was like enjoyable for me. But now it feels hostile even when it's not. And I think that, to not address the fact that by forcing everybody to wear masks, you've now created this situation in society that already is suspicious of everyone else. This has got way higher consequences than most people realized.
Yeah, I think there's a difference a little bit there. There's a little bit of space to separate kind of two layers here, where the forcing people to wear masks issue, I'm with you 100% on, but I think it's also reasonable to expect that whether you are wearing a mask or not, other people may or may not in the future, right? Like 6 months ago, if you'd said everybody would be wearing masks somewhere and it's a thing and you'd have to have this conversation, it wouldn't make any sense at all. But here we are, right? So I would say, what can you do to adjust yourself to get used to that potential reality? Maybe that won't be the case. I don't know. But if it is, you have to be able to give yourself some space between your, perception and your reaction there, so that you catch those things and say, wait a minute, is it likely that this person is like reaching out to, are we doing this to start a fight here, or what's really going on,
Well, that's a fair way to look at it. Like, just because I had that emotion and before masks I didn't have that emotion doesn't mean that then therefore I'm righteous in my anger. And that's probably that's a good reminder for me. I don't know. One of the thoughts that I had, because I was watching children be carted around, and there was a guy there and he had 3 kids, and one of them couldn't have been older than 4 years old wearing a mask. And to me, I feel resentment. I feel like this sense of like, where can we go where this won't happen? And I guess if I have to address it, that it won't change, I really don't know how I will react, because this is maybe it's something I have to come to terms with. I really, really hope it's not this way. And I think I'm prepared to do some level of civil disobedience in order to not make it be that way. Not right now, because I guess I don't know how deadly this disease is, but more and more every day, I think civil disobedience might be the more valuable thing that I can hand future generations than it is to do my part to stop the spread of the disease by wearing a mask.
Well, what would you like? What would you want to accomplish? Right, to let people know that there's something better than wearing a mask around, that the balance, that their preference for safety over, liberty was improper.
Yeah, that's a good question. What would I try and communicate that with? I don't know. That's fair, because if you just start walking around without a mask on, that's not going to do anything. And if you walk around holding a sign saying why you're not wearing a mask around, then you're kind of doing exactly what we had been saying before is the folly of youth. So
right, you're telling everybody else what they should be doing, right? No, I mean, I think it's important to think these things through, because these are all these ideas are in the air right now. Like, everybody's kind of mulling these things over. I saw the video of the people being arrested in California for not wearing masks. I mean, ultimately, my feeling is if you're on private property and the sign says you must wear a mask, then you must wear a mask, right? Like, that's how I feel about it. And if you don't want to wear it, then don't go there. But I feel equally as strong that the government should not have a mask law requiring you to wear a mask either. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would imagine that many of the listeners probably feel there's some line, because nobody thinks that you should just be able to put just endless amounts of asks on people. And there are probably a lot of people that are much more willing to accept a small ask than other people, right? Like, you and I are highly disagreeable people. So this small ask doesn't feel like a small ask. Any encroachment
Right.
that I'm not, particularly those that you say I don't have a choice on. And there's got to be a better balance here. But